Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to I Care About You, the podcast where we talk about the real, raw, and sometimes messy parts of being human. I'm your host, Juliana J, and today we're diving into something we all struggle with: procrastination. We all do it, whether it's avoiding emails, pushing off creative projects, or waiting until the last minute to do something important. But why do we procrastinate? And more importantly, how can we break free from it? So let's get into it. Actually, before we get into it, I want to remind everyone about my book, Reasons to Live. There's a lot of really great insight and help in there for figuring out who you are, your purpose, your mission, your worth in life, and how to help others do the same. So I hope you'll check it out. The link is in my description. So now for serious, let's get into it. Why do we procrastinate? Let's start with that big question, shall we? Some people think it's laziness, but that's actually not true. Procrastination is emotional. It is often a response to stress, fear of failure, perfectionism, or even boredom. Sometimes we avoid tasks because we're overwhelmed. Obviously, other times we put it off because we don't believe we can do them well enough. Does this sound familiar? It sure does for me. There's so many times where I haven't done a task simply because I'm worried about what other people will think. I don't think I can do a good job. I don't think I can complete the task, or it seems too daunting. All kinds of things will stop me from working on a task. But also it's this overwhelm. I don't know about you, but life has all of a sudden gotten just through the roof crazy, more so than when I had like small children at home and things like that. I feel like the overwhelm of life has gotten so huge. There's just so many things to keep track of now. There's so many things to know. There's so many things to do. Your jobs are getting more stressful. Family life is more stressful. What you need to do to help your family thrive is more stressful. Everything costs more. There's this general overwhelm that's everywhere. And it can make it really hard to stop and do smaller tasks in your life that you need to do. Many things can keep you from taking action. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's uncertainty, maybe it's because the task feels too big, maybe it's a judgment if it isn't executed perfectly. Whatever the reason, acknowledging it is the first step. So if you feel you have something that you procrastinate on regularly, like for me, it's emails. I will look at my email list. I will see emails I even want to answer, but yet I don't. I procrastinate on clicking and answering them. And so the first task for me then is to identify what are these tasks I'm procrastinating on and why. Procrastination isn't about time management. It's about emotion management. Our brains seek short-term relief by avoiding tasks that feel stressful, and instead we do something easier, like scrolling on social media, watching Netflix, or suddenly deciding to clean the entire house. It gives us a little dopamine hit, making us feel better in the moment, but worse in the long run. So let's unpack that a little bit. And we all do it. I do it totally. Scrolling is a huge thing I find myself doing all the time to avoid very simple tasks that aren't a problem at all, to very large tasks. And I will even clean the house before I do something else, although I'll also procrastinate on cleaning the house when it's like cleaning house day or someone's coming over or some reason why cleaning the house is becoming a priority. I'll procrastinate on it. We do this because it gives us a little dopamine hit, a little like everything's okay. Look, you're doing something. Or it's taking your mind off the fact that you aren't doing what you need to do. For a moment, you can go in this space of not having to sit with the fact that you're not doing the task at hand. But it's worse in the long run because the task is still there at the end of the day. The key to breaking procrastination: small, consistent action. And this is where the 2-minute rule comes in, which I love. I use this rule all the time. It's so helpful. It's a really simple concept that you can apply right now and get bigger results. So how do you do it? The practical steps to stopping procrastination are application and action. One of the best strategies I found, like I said, is the 2-minute rule, created by productivity expert David Allen. The idea is simple. If the task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Respond to an email, put away the laundry, make a quick phone call. It could be something like brushing your teeth, although you're supposed to do that for 3 minutes, I believe, or any kind of task you're procrastinating on. Just if it's under 2 minutes, just do it. Just do it. Oh, this is a quick task. I'm just going to do it. Oh, I'm just going to put away the laundry. 2-minute task. If the task feels overwhelming, break it down into 2-minute starts. Instead of like, I'm going to write a book, it should be, I'm going to write for 2 minutes. Every day I'm going to write for 2 minutes and see where it goes, rather than I'm going to write this huge manuscript, this 300-page novel, because that seems so huge, right? But if it is 5 days a week, I'm going to sit down at noon when my lunch break starts and start writing my novel for 2 minutes. I'm going to calendar that out and I'm going to do it consistently. Or, instead of I have to clean the entire house, it could be I am going to just clean one dish or wash the dishes, or I'm going to do one simple thing around the house cleaning. And that's why it's so magical, because often the barrier is just starting. And once we start, we can even get into a flow where we come up for air 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours later, and we're like, wow, I've been doing this for a really long time when I had only intended to do it 2 minutes. It's because the starting of the thing is the barrier. Make a list of 5 things you procrastinate on. Then next to each one, write down why you avoid it and what your 2-minute action should be for each thing. And you can do this for all kinds of tasks. I do this a lot at work because I have a lot of big projects. And so, like, for example, writing these weekly scripts for the podcast, I will just start with, I have to write a weekly script. That's one of the things I do procrastinate on because there's so many things to talk to y'all about. I get lost in which thing I should talk about first. Then I write down the next step for that. If I'm writing a script, the first step would be start with what am I going to write about? Maybe I've done some research. I do a lot of research, or when something comes across my plate that I think would be really awesome to share with y'all, I'll put it in my notes. So I'll go through my notes or wherever it is I'm kind of capturing those ideas. A lot of times it's in my journal. When I'm writing in my journal, something will come up and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's a great topic. And so I write it at the top of the page and circle it so I can find it easily. So I'll go through my journal and look for those and I'll just write that down. And that usually takes about 2 minutes, maybe a little bit more. But once I've done that, I'm on my way. And that's what I mean. It's taking a big task and just breaking it down into small components, small little steps that seem easier and more doable. Changing your mindset on procrastination is really important. This is where inspiration and future focus come into play. Imagine if you stopped waiting for motivation and you started with just 2 minutes. How much progress do you think you could make? How much lighter would you feel? Procrastination doesn't mean you're lazy, it means you're human. But small steps done consistently can help you move forward in ways that you never expected. It just breaks that door down a little bit that you're afraid to go through when you start a project or you have trepidation about, or it just seems daunting. By breaking it down into these small little actionable items that are easy to do, you just start on your way. So what is one thing you can do right now for just 2 minutes? Just do it and then celebrate yourself after you've done it. And this, I think, is super important. I talk about a lot on this podcast in that when you achieve things, celebrate it, even if it's just to yourself, like a little happy dance, or I celebrate in all different kinds of ways. I might take a break and take my dog outside, or I might go on a hike, something bigger, or I might eat candy, or so many other things. But I do take a moment to celebrate and celebrate those little milestones along the way. But I'm also celebrating the end product, which I think is something, at least in America, we don't really do that much because we're always bringing the bar higher for ourselves. If we get close to a goal, we'll put the bar higher. So we're constantly striving and we're never taking those moments to really celebrate what we do accomplish. I mean, literally, as you all know, some days it is a big accomplishment to do the dishes. It really is because, life is overwhelming. Life is hard sometimes. We go through a lot of challenges. A lot of us are feeling very stressed out about challenges that life is presenting, both worldwide, socially, community-wide, and even in our backyards and in our homes. We're all working through so much that celebrating little things is really important. And if any of you have had children or we were all children once, you remember how wonderful it was when people celebrated your accomplishments, big or small. So keep that in mind, that emphasis in mind, and do that to yourself. It not only helps you move through these tasks and goals that you have that you're finding challenging to start. It helps you move through those, but it also rewires your brain a little bit so that you can feel that your tasks are valid and worthy, and therefore you are valid and worthy. If you're celebrating yourself and the things that you do, it gives you a sense that you have more power over your own life, that you can do things, that you are worthy, and that you're smart whenever you do something. It reaffirms a positive affirmation for yourself. And by celebrating it, you're kind of taking the time to really acknowledge that. I never celebrated anything I did in life as a grown-up. I downplayed everything because for me, I was taught that you don't outshine other people, mostly like authority figures or your partner or other men in the family. You never outshine them. So I adopted this belief of not celebrating anything I did because I didn't want to outshine anyone. I was also taught that celebrating anything I did was not being humble. I was kind of really taught this by peers, I would say, really, or by any kind of spiritual belief I came across. I really didn't understand humility that well. And I thought it was just not drawing attention to yourself or not being proud of anything you ever did. And it's so much more than that. I should really do a podcast on humility, and we should explore what that actually is, because literally until like 10 years ago, I actually thought humility was something different than what I've come to believe it is today. And I thought humility was something where you can't ever honor yourself, you can't ever celebrate yourself, you can't ever feel good about yourself, you can't ever outshine anyone, you can't ever take responsibility for actions that are wonderful that you did, and that you can't, basically, or shouldn't. And in doing that, we start to train ourselves that we aren't worthy enough for certain things. It can be a very dangerous sort of sneaks in the back door. You think you're just being humble, but you're also adding to that all these things that have to do with your own self-worth, your own belief in self, your own trust in self, and your own happiness and joy. So learning how to use the 2-minute rule can really help you out. And it's so easy. You don't have to have lists and things like I've been saying, although it really helps you start your path. I couldn't even identify the things I was procrastinating on, except for the big things I knew I was procrastinating on. But I didn't even know so much of what I procrastinated on until I started keeping little lists about it. And that led me to some really great self-reflections, because in writing why I'm procrastinating about it, I learned things about myself, like I don't think I'm smart enough, or I'm afraid people will laugh at it, or what if someone saw? Or, just that big judgment. I didn't realize how other people's judgment and my own judgment really dictated so much of what I did. And I'm still struggling with that today. But it's getting better all the time. But the 2-minute rule, writing those lists, really helped me kind of identify where my shadows are, where my weak spaces are, where the things I need to work on are, where the negative self-beliefs are, where the negative self-talk is, where my worthiness is or is not. So it's a really useful tool on so many ways. But once you've kind of identified, you can apply the 2-minute rule. And like even doing this podcast today, I was procrastinating on doing it. It's totally procrastinating, which is so funny because it's a podcast about procrastination. But I was procrastinating about it because just starting, like I have to set up so I can record. I need to go over the script to make sure that it's the way I want it. I need to carve out the time to make sure something doesn't happen. And then I have all this editing work and other things on the flip side of it. And sometimes it can just seem overwhelming to put out a 20-minute podcast because there's so much involved. But I applied the 2-minute rule and I thought, I'll just set up my equipment. And so I set up my equipment in the warmest room of the house because it's kind of cold today. And I was great. Now it's all set up and I'm all ready to go. Why not just do a dry run with script and see how it goes? And here I am, almost to the end of this podcast, just because I took one little task of let me set up in my kitchen, basically, because it's warm so that I'm comfortable. And that led me to the end of this podcast. So in closing, I would like to ask you that, as I say in many of my podcasts, I care about you as a community, where I care about you, you care about me, and we care about the others that are also sharing this experience with us. So if you know anyone who could benefit from this podcast on how to just quickly kind of work with your procrastination. Now, there's other procrastination I want to say that runs much deeper and might take a little bit more effort or help from some sort of professional in some way, whether it be a coach, a therapist, or some other type of modality. But if you know someone who procrastinates a little, which we all do, please share this podcast with them. It's just a really easy, simple step. Or tell them about the concept so that they can try it in their life and see if they get results that they're looking for. And please, please, if you want to book time with me to talk about this, you can go to my website, which is linked in the description. There's also links to, as I said, Reasons to Live, my book. There's a link to the meetup that I have where we do a lot of journaling stuff, and we're about to do some other things, which is really exciting. That project is lagging a little bit. It's behind the timeline for very good reasons. It's a lot to put together programming. And so keep an eye out for that. More programming to come there. That's really, really helpful. And if you have anything to suggest to me, please do so. Leave it in the comments or send me a DM, or on my website, you can contact me and let me know what your ideas are, what you would like to hear about, and how do you work with procrastination. Leave a comment so the community can see it too, because in learning how you relate to procrastination helps me as I relate to procrastination or any other topic I talk about on the show. So until then, my friends, just remember, it's progress, not perfection. What you're looking for here is just progress. And a little bit of progress is incredible. It's better than no progress. And you're on your way. You've taken the first step. So it's about your progress, not your perfection. And take good care, my friends. And I'll see you next time. And until then, know that I love you and I support you and you got this and I care about you. So take care.